What's up, guys? Mike here, coming at you from the mushroom farm. Got a great video for you guys tonight. So we're going to do a deep dive on the blue oyster mushroom. We're going to cover that. Also, I want to just thank everybody who has made purchases during my Black Friday sale and everybody that entered the subscriber giveaway over the holiday and leading up to that. And happy Thanksgiving, you guys, if you didn't see my last video. But anyway, like I said, tonight we're going to do a deep dive on blue oyster. I've actually made some notes. Okay, I don't always make notes for my videos, but we're gonna get in deep on this one. And also, I want to say any new viewers tuning in right now, if you're new to this channel, my name's Mike. I'm a mushroom farmer. I've been farming gourmet mushrooms 9 years full time. Here's just a few pictures of some of my grows over the years and some of my recent harvests. But we are standing here in my brand new mushroom farm that I built myself, actually, out here in western Colorado, and I'm doing daily uploads. We're doing monthly subscriber giveaways. Always got something cool on the channel. So if you're into mushrooms and farming, make sure you click that subscribe button right now so you get more mushroom and farming videos like this in the future. But anyway, on to today's video. First, before we get into this, actually, I want to talk to everybody that has made purchases. Thank you so much. I had a huge day yesterday as far as selling cultures and all that stuff. So, like I said, all your orders are going out Monday, and you guys can expect those like this next upcoming week. But I appreciate everyone so much. Also, any comments that I didn't get to yet in that last video, basically what I'm doing, my kind of protocol is right now, since I'm doing daily uploads, I try to reply to the comments as quickly as I get them. And then whenever I'm posting up like my next video, then I go back and hit all the other ones that I didn't get. But I want to talk to some of you too, because some of you had questions about, one of them was international orders. I had another guy just asking a question about growing lion's mane, so I'm going to cover a few of these real quick. First, I just want to say, anybody that is an international customer or anybody that wants to order my cultures and you're in another country, I have most of the countries activated on my Shopify website. But if for whatever reason, here's what I want you to do. Basically, if you're international, go ahead and try to process your order. If the order does not process for whatever reason, email me at mushroommesamike@gmail.com. That email is in the description box below. Email me there, tell me exactly what country you're in, and I'll activate it for your country. But I just kind of activate them on a like as need to basis or whatever. So anyway, I did have one person asking me about different international shipping through emails. Just go ahead and try to process your orders if you guys are international, and if they don't go through, hit me up. I'll modify it on the website because I have cultures going all over. And if you're an international subscriber and you've gotten cultures from me or anything like that, please comment below just so you can let everyone know or whatever, because we have a lot of you out there. I'm really happy about that. I think it's super cool that you guys are growing all these different mushroom genetics all over the world. I get a kick out of that, actually. And another one, okay, I had another guy asking about growing lion's mane mushroom and just like what's the best one to get. I'll tell you right now, if you want a super good, any of my lion's mane strains are really good, but my newest one, Samson, check that out. You can use the Black Friday code Mesa 25 to get 25% off your order. But that's what I would suggest you get. And I'm going to do deep dives on cultivation and on all these species for my master packs and all that stuff. I had some people asking me if I could go in depth on all these ones, and that's kind of what we're doing tonight. Is we're going to do the deep dive on the blue oyster. I'm going to talk about all sorts of stuff about blue oyster, so that's going to be good. I'm also going to have a video coming up about how to use your cultures, like how you should use your master pack and all that. I'm going to be posting that up this next upcoming week or something like that. I'll pretty much post that up is what I'm kind of planning on. But that way you guys can get the most out of it. You can make agar then out of it. You can make more LC. You can inoculate grain. That's kind of my basic procedure anyway. Whenever I personally get a culture from anyone else, right away I pretty much make agar, LC, and then sometimes I make some grain with it if I just want to get to growing it right away. But anyway, we're going to get into today's video. If you guys have any questions about anything I just said or anything that occurs throughout this video, be sure to drop it down below in that comment section. I'll answer all your questions, and I'll probably even make a video on it. Also, because of all the orders we get, I'm going to invest a lot here in the farm. Getting a new whiteboard, so we'll use a whiteboard for some of the upcoming videos. I'm pretty pumped about that. But I'm doing a bunch of upgrades on the farm and stuff like that. So anytime you guys make a purchase for me, we're just really putting the money back into the farm, back into the channel. I really enjoy making this content for you guys. Like all the comments you guys have given me, just providing value, I can tell it's important. So blue oyster. First of all, what is it? It's an oyster mushroom. I've been growing blue oyster on my farm pretty much since day one. I started growing mushrooms on straw, okay? And this is one of the ones that kind of like just kept me going in the very beginning. In the beginning, like I said, you're gonna fail a lot. There's like a learning curve to this. So fail forward when you get contamination and stuff like that. Learn from your mistakes. But blue oyster, even when I would get a little contamination or something like that, I swear to you, that would be the one that would like pull me through. I'd actually have something that harvest, and I could always sell something at the farmer's market. There was totally times my first year of farming, I would walk down into the grow room like during the week, and I'd be checking out my grow, and I was wondering, I'm like, man, am I gonna have mushrooms to sell this weekend? And even if I didn't have any other mushrooms to sell, the blue oyster always pulled through. So like if you're a beginner, I recommend blue oyster over like any other mushroom, okay? Like it is like the number one easiest to grow, prolific, gourmet type of mushroom that I think any beginner should be growing, okay? And even experts, if you're an expert, the blue, like me, the blue oyster is such a staple on my farm. And I'll tell you guys several reasons why this is a staple on my farm, because I really like growing it. So number one, why should you grow the blue oyster? Just mainly one, because it's easy. It's a high yielding mushroom. It has a wide temperature range, and they're easy to sell for the most part too, okay? So when did the blue oyster mushroom, or just oyster mushrooms, really start gaining popularity as far as cultivation, and when were they really truly first used? This is kind of cool. This is a cool little fun fact. No one knew this. In World War I, they were a means of sustenance, okay? So people got into growing mushrooms as a sustenance measure during the world wars, and oyster mushrooms are just highly prolific. You can grow them on wood, you can grow them on straw, basically agricultural byproducts. So that's kind of where it got started, and you grow it on various substrates. So that's one reason why it is a really good mushroom to grow, in my opinion. Now, as far as easy to sell, okay, that's another reason why you should be growing this mushroom. A lot of chefs want this, okay? It goes good in all kinds of meals. I'm actually going to tell you guys, I wrote down a list of all the different types of ways I like to eat it, because there's several ways I like to cook the blue oyster mushroom, and I have my preferences actually for like each individual mushroom. I have a lot of people too ask me, they're like, hey Mike, do you have a favorite mushroom? I don't really have a favorite anymore nowadays. It's kind of like whatever I'm in the mood for, or whatever kind of meal I'm cooking, I do have certain ones that I like to pair with certain things. So I'll kind of talk about how I personally like the oyster mushrooms. But easy to sell to chefs, easy to sell at farmers markets. A lot of people are pretty aware of them. I will say some areas, if they're not kind of like hip to new food trends, selling gourmet mushrooms or some of these like wild, weird mushrooms or whatever might be a little tricky in some places. But I'll tell you what, the longer I've been in this, more people know about these things. It was harder to sell these things like 9 years ago when I first started compared to what it is now. I swear, I go to the markets now, everyone pretty much knows what an oyster mushroom is, so I feel like a lot of people know what oyster mushrooms are, and that makes them pretty easy to sell. I'll say another good reason, this kind of relates to selling at markets. See, I sell by volume, and these are pretty like high volume mushrooms. I will just say, when you display them, they're always like a big cluster, you know, or you have like some nice big petally looking caps. And I think it's like eye-catching, so that's another reason. Like if you sell at farmers markets, I think this oyster mushrooms in general, blue oyster, will definitely attract people to your stand. Mine are massive, especially like my blue Mesa strain. So if you guys haven't seen pictures of my blue Mesa strain, here's a couple shots of it. But like if you let these incubate just a little bit longer, these specific genetics, they will give you crazy big mushrooms, okay? You get a big yield no matter what, but if you want like big single mushrooms, let it incubate like an extra week, and it pretty much increases those odds quite a bit. You don't get it every time, but it does increase it pretty good amount. One thing I want to talk about in this video too, incubation times. So if you're growing something like blue oyster mushroom on a master mix block, okay, like a 5-pound block, it might be fully colonized if you've inoculated it with grain spawn in about 2 weeks and ready to go in your grow room in about 2 weeks. A bigger 10-pound block, it might take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. And like I said, if you want to get some of those like super massive ones, wait just a little bit longer and then put it in your grow room, and then you'll get some really big ones. But that's pretty much what everyone should know about the incubation phase for master's mix. On straw, typically blue oyster takes about 3 weeks, and it'll be pinning from the straw and ready to fruit. if you're doing outdoor log cultivation, it takes a little bit longer. You might be looking at like a year colonization time outdoors before you're getting fully big fruits coming off that log, and the log itself is actually fruiting. So that's a little bit on blue oyster incubation. Another good reason why you should be growing oyster mushrooms is they're easy to dry. Okay, so if you don't sell them all or you have an abundance, they're pretty easy to dry. You can just use a dehydrator. You can also turn them into like jerky or even powders. I've seen people make umami type flavored powders, you know, so if you've never seen mushroom seasoning or anything like that, that's one thing you can do with the blue oyster, even smoking it and then putting that into a seasoning. So there's a lot of cool like extra products you can make if you have an abundance of mushrooms and you're just drying them out. So the blue is a good choice for that. Now that we're talking about eating this stuff, like how do I like to eat it, okay? There's a bunch of ways right here. Now, one of my favorite ways, okay, pasta con broccoli, okay? I like pasta con broccoli, you know, with the cream sauce and stuff. The blue oyster mushroom, like, is a great substitute, I feel like, for cremini or button mushrooms in something like that. So try that out if you haven't. I also like frying them. Okay, now there's a lot of different ways. I've seen some guys make some really cool batters and stuff for frying these mushrooms. I usually do like a tempura batter where it's kind of like cornstarch and rice flour or just straight cornstarch. I will lightly like dampen or moisten the mushrooms, kind of shake them off with a colander just where they're a little wet, okay? And then I will have seasoned cornstarch and I'll just kind of dip them through the cornstarch. I personally don't use an egg batter, but I've seen people get creative with it. So do whatever your favorite way is to batter them. But then I'll take them and I'll just deep fry them or fry them however you would, and they're really good little appetizers, okay? So if you haven't tried that, give that a shot. Also, smoked, like on the grill. So I've also like sliced them up, mixed them with vegetables in like a medley, put other meats or something or whatever in a cast iron pan in a grill, and I've just kind of cooked a bunch of stuff together in a grill. Even little potatoes, things like that, but they get a really cool smoked flavor. I like that a lot. Let's see, soups. Okay, so any type of like soup is good, or chili. I'm a big fan of the blue oyster and chili. I think it adds good flavor, and also like the stalks. The stalk of like the blue oyster is kind of like marshmallowy. It's meaty, but like kind of marshmallowy. Super good. I like to like slice them into discs, and I'll put those in like my chili. Really dig that. Also, another good one, kind of getting into like Mexican foods and stuff. Quesadillas, fajitas, burritos. Kind of however you want to do it. You can slice them up and saute them and kind of put them in fajitas or burritos. Also, I've made blue oyster mushroom quesadillas where I pre-cooked the oyster mushrooms and then I just kind of put the quesadilla together and made it. That is bomb. So give that a shot if you haven't. Another one, pizza toppings. These go well on pizza toppings. I like to pre-cook them, and that way like I could cook them with like some butter and some seasoning, and then I'll put them on the top and then just bake my pizzas. Any of you master pizza chefs out there, though, if you have tips or any better ways we can enhance some of these meals, drop it down below in the comment section. Actually, too, if any of you guys have favorite meals you like to make with your oyster mushrooms, specifically the blue oyster, drop that down below in the comment section. And I will say, if some people wonder, do these oyster mushrooms have different flavors and stuff? And absolutely, like some of them taste different. They have different textures. And there's different reasons why actually all of my oyster mushrooms that I grow, they're all slightly different. And like I do have preferences actually for like different types of meals. So just for blue oyster, if you guys have favorite blue oyster meals or anything like that, put it down below in the comment section. Let's see. Oh, also cooked in like on nachos. I've done that. That's pretty good. On sandwiches, I've also sauteed them, put them on sandwiches. I used to sell to these vegan chefs in St. Louis, and they would make chicken sandwiches. Here's a picture out of my oyster mushrooms. They would do a phenomenal job. Before I moved out here to Colorado, I stopped in at their restaurant, and I had some of them, and absolutely delicious. Like, they were the best vegan chicken sandwiches I've ever eaten in my life. Just vegan food in general, I'll say oyster mushrooms are great for that because they're nice and meaty texture. And then, like I said, the chicken strips, vegan chicken strips, I just thought that was like really cool. It's just like another way of frying them. But they put it together with like a specific seasoning and just did a great job on that. So anyway, that's kind of like how the different ways I kind of like to cook them and how I like to eat them. And now we're going to talk about the growing conditions a little bit. We'll talk about yields, what you can expect with like different substrates and stuff. And then I'm going to talk about some of the bad points or just some of the cons about growing it that you need to be aware of, and just usually things with growing, little nuance to growing the blue oyster mushroom, but we're going to cover that too. Okay, so growing conditions, one of the cool things about it, blue oyster mushroom, it's a pretty wide range, okay, temperature wise. So you can grow it anywhere from like 40 degrees up into the 80s, okay? And I want to say at the lower temperatures, it's basically going to grow a little bit slower. You're going to get a darker color. You're going to get how you guys get those real deep dark blue colors. That's pretty much like 65 degrees or under, okay? So keep that in mind. If you're ever wondering, like, why is my blue oyster looking more gray? It's usually temp related, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just kind of like what it is, you know? And also, when you get into higher temperatures, okay, above 70, above 75 for sure, you could battle bacterial blotch a little bit. And what that is, you'll see some yellowing, not necessarily like it's drying out, but it's like a bacterial problem. And you can see this with blue oyster in the higher temps. Like I said, 75 plus into the 80 degrees is when that can start to occur. So just keep an eye on your mushrooms. You may need to pick them early. You may need to just make sure your grow room is super clean to help avoid that if you're going to have some high temperatures. But ideally, like the primo sweet spot for blue oyster, like many other mushrooms, is like 65 degrees or in between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit if you want to use a range. Now, let's talk about the humidity a little bit. Humidity basically for blue oyster, 85 to 90% is ideal, okay? So if you can keep it in that zone, it's going to be pretty good. You're going to get good results with it. Lighting, I just use basic daylight LED lights. If you're going to put it outdoors, you're going to do some outdoor growing, you're going to want to have it in like a shady area, okay? Don't let it get cooked by the sun for sure. I want to talk to you guys about how I cut open the bags and stuff like that for when it comes to blue oyster mushrooms. So my preference is master's mix blocks for my commercial style cultivation. A lot of people ask, do you cut like an X, or do you make a box or a hole, or what do you do? And I'll say, here's my favorite thing. So if you look at some of my grow room shots, head over to my Instagram too if you guys haven't seen shots of my grow room, or just check out some of my other videos, because I've got some videos showing the blue oyster mushroom off a lot in my fruiting rooms. But what I like to do is I like to make a 2x2 cut on basically the side of the, like if I'm doing a side fruit, I will do it on the narrow part of that block, kind of on the actual side of it, and I'll make a 2x2 square and actually cut a hole, okay? Just a perfect 2x2 hole, and that works great. You get awesome pin sets. If I'm doing a top fruit, I basically take the block and I flip it down on its side where the big part is facing up, and I'll cut that 2x2 hole right in the middle of it, and that gives me like a perfect top fruit. But that's like my favorite way to cut open my blue oyster mushroom bags. Let's talk about yields a little bit, okay? So as far as different substrates, I've grown these on straw and master's mix. I've never done log cultivation myself, but I will say you can do outdoor log cultivation. There's a lot of people that do that. I'm going to talk about some of the methods you can try if you want to do that. Now for straw, basically what I was doing is I was cold pasteurizing my straw, bringing it up to a 12.0 pH with lime water, soaking the chopped straw in lime water overnight, straining it the next day, allowing it to drip dry, and then you can inoculate it in the open air basically with just good colonized blue oyster grain spawn. Okay, so that's kind of one of the benefits if you're going to do it on straw. Like I said before in other videos, you can just use a cold pasteurization method and you don't have to fully sterilize your substrate. And basically for like a 5-gallon bucket, if you guys are wondering, if I was making a 5-gallon bucket of blue oyster, you could get about 3 pounds off that first flush roughly, okay? Maybe just like slightly over 3 pounds. So you get a pretty good yield actually, all right? Now on master's mix, okay, so like sawdust and soybean holes, that's what I do here on my farm, just because I can like commercially streamline it really easy. I'll say if you guys are doing this for like a commercial business in the United States and you have access to sawdust and soybean holes, this is the way you want to do it. It's going to be the most efficient for you. The straw, it's kind of a lot of labor because you got to chop it all. It's messy, it's harder to streamline, and the master's mix is just more efficient. But anyway, on like a 10-pound block of 60-40 master's mix, 60% wood pellet, 40% soybean hull, you can expect anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds yield on a 10-pound block. And on roughly like a 5-pound block, you can expect anywhere from like 1 to 2 pounds, kind of in that zone. But blue oyster is a super high yielder, very prolific on master's mix, and that's my recommendation. Now, let's talk just a tad about outdoors, like on logs, whether that's just inoculated logs, totems, or even buried blocks in mulch. Okay, so as far as logs go, me personally, I think if I were to make like a blue oyster mushroom log, I would make a totem. Okay, and I haven't done any videos of that on the channel, but there's a lot of other YouTubers that have. So if you're interested in mushroom totems, just give it a little Google. But basically, you'll chop the wood into sections, and then you will sandwich your sawdust spawn in between each section of the log, and then you can like screw them together or fasten the log sections together, and you can basically just make a totem pole, and you sandwich your spawn in between each section of the log. Then you place it in a shady area, and you may see it actually, if you guys are wondering how it works, you may see the fruit start to grow out of the sawdust, out of where you actually inoculated it, making the little sandwiches. You might see that within a couple weeks because it's actually fruiting from the sawdust, but it takes like about a year for the logs to get colonized, and then the log actually begins to fruit. So that's kind of how it works outdoors. Some people even bury blocks in mulch. I've personally never done this. I've had old blocks that I've put like in my compost pile. I've had those fruit out on me before, but some people actually like to just buy a grow block, maybe if they don't have a grow tent indoors, and then you can just grow it in your mulch bed outside. Like I said, put it in a shady area. You would basically bury the block. You dig a hole, you put the grow block in the hole, cover it with mulch, and just kind of let nature do its thing, let your mushrooms come up. I've had people ask me before too if I'm selling blocks or anything like that. I used to. I'm not into it really nowadays anymore, just because everything that I do here on my farm, it's pretty much just for farmers markets and to restaurants. And I don't have any employees here. It's just me. So it's best, honestly, for me to stick with cultures and stuff like that. Like I said, I got a lot of orders going out this week, and you guys are keeping me nice and busy with that. So I'm not really looking to add on blocks. Just that maybe in a couple years or something, we might be selling blocks. But right now, we're just going to stick to this. And I want to say, if anybody wants to grow the blue oyster mushroom, like I said, just head over to my website. That's linked down in the description box below. And you can use the discount code right now, Mesa25, to get 25% off discount on any order. And we're running the sale basically until December 5th. You can purchase all day December 5th, and then after that, we're going back to normal prices. But another thing I wanted to add in here, just talking about selling the blue oyster mushroom, I'm going to give you guys a few tips if any of you guys sell them at farmers markets and stuff like that. I've done lots of videos in the past just about selling at farmers markets, so if you want to check out some of those older videos, they're really good. I plan on doing more in the future though, because that's a pretty commonly asked question just about sales and stuff like that. But when someone comes up to me at my farmers market stand and they're asking about my mushrooms, especially if they're new to mushrooms, I basically kind of show them. I grow oysters, like I said, in a lot of hericiums and stuff like that, so I kind of introduce them into oysters and hericiums. But I basically describe the blue oyster mushroom as like a nice meaty texture mushroom with like a mild nutty or umami type of flavor. It's like a nice savory mushroom to eat, and it's good for anybody just like wanting to try some gourmet mushrooms. And then typically they ask some cooking tips, and basically what I do is I instruct them how to do a dry saute or just how to bread them and fry. I feel like those are the two common ways people can go. So I basically tell them, slice the mushrooms up or tear them up into little pieces. I like to either lightly grease the pan, just lightly, or put them in the pan even dry sometimes. Stir them around until they get like a sear on them, and then after they kind of sear, release their moisture a little bit. Then I like to add in the seasonings. I personally go like salt, pepper, garlic, but you can do whatever you want, you know. And then I'll put in maybe like a little butter at the end just to kind of like add a glaze or some flavor. And then kind of like my other method is like I just kind of told you guys earlier about the video about the tempura fry with the cornstarch. But when I'm trying to sell those to a customer, usually I'll say those two things, and that will usually get them to buy right away. And if it doesn't, maybe they might just need some other tips. Sometimes omelets. I didn't talk about omelets, but that's another one pretty much everybody likes to do with mushrooms. But you can talk about some of the recipes like I talked about earlier, and that's a good way to kind of like sell these things at markets. Anyway, like I said, if you guys have any questions about what I went over today with blue oyster, or you have any suggested videos, just drop it down below in that comment section. I'll be sure to answer all your questions. But really appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to keep the daily uploads coming. Had a little later one tonight, you know, but we got it in. My goal, just so you guys know my goal, by the way, my goal is I want to hit, for sure, and I think we'll do this, we should hit 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But my goal for myself is I want to do 100 daily uploads in a row. I think we're at like 14 or 15 right now. I've been close to doing 100 before. I think I was like in the 60s before without missing a day or something like that. But right now we're trying to do 100 days in a row without missing. So even if I got to stay up late, make the video, I'm doing it. This was a good one tonight. I think there's a whole lot of information in this one. And like I said, we're going to do some more videos about some of my other mushrooms that I grow here on my farm, kind of like doing deep dives on them. And but anyway, that's kind of all I got for you on this one tonight, guys. Hopefully you found this helpful and informative. If you did, please drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that's all I got for you on this one. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.